2:01. This will be the Audits and Government Efficiency Committee meeting for Tuesday, November 13th. Councilmember Zine chairing. Mr. Rosendahl is supposed to be here, and how about Mr. Labange? You hear from him, Paul? All right, well, we on the agenda have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 items. So let's start with the easy ones. 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Okay, item 1, control report relative to fiscal year 2009-10 audited financial statements and debt service compliance report for the sewer construction and maintenance fund. Item 2 is also a control report relative to fiscal year 2010-11 audited financial statements and debt service compliant report for the sewer and construction and maintenance fund. And item 3 continued from October 9th, 2012. Control report relative to controller's follow-up audit of the energy conservation measures in the city.
Very well. So let's do 1 and 2 together. Who's here? 1 and 2. Come on forward. You're 1 and 2? Don't be so shy. So tell us who you are and how you justify the $1 million expenditures.
I'm Grace Yun from Simpson & Simpson. We are the external auditor that performed the audit on the sewer and construction maintenance funds.
Okay, you're with who?
The auditor, external auditor from
Who's
Simpson
that?
& Simpson, and I'm Grace Yun.
With Simpson?
Right.
How come the big man's not here himself?
I should be able to handle the
Oh,
question.
you used to be able to handle it. Okay, well, we'll see if that's the case. And you, ma'am?
Good afternoon. My name is Victoria Santiago. I'm from the Office of Accounting for the Department of Public Works.
Okay, sir?
I'm Dale Burgoyne. I'm from Financial Management Division in Sanitation, and I'm responsible for the the wastewater fund.
Okay.
And I'm Ursula Villanueva with Office of Accounting, Principal Accountant.
Very well. So what do we have on overview of financial report for the 2 items? So it looks like the external audit comprised of various audits of the department, cities, financial operations, city contracts with the independent audit firm of Simpson to perform the audit, file audit report with the city. So tell me where the problems are. Tell me where the issues are. Where's the waste, fraud, and abuse? Where's the corruption?
We performed the...
There is none, huh?
Yeah, we performed the financial audit, and then we issue a unqualified opinion. That means like these financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with accounting standards. So it's we do not have any like material weaknesses or significant deficiencies noted during
No
the audit.
deficiencies?
No significant deficiencies.
Oh, significant. So you may have had a couple, but not significant. So
Right.
the minor ones weren't really of any big issue?
No. Yeah, there is.
So in other words, they're doing a good job? Is that what you're saying?
They did a...
Don't be shy. I mean, if they're good, they're good. If they're not good, they're not good.
Yeah, they did a good job.
They do a good job?
Right.
Okay, so the audit showed it was very positive and no issues of any significance?
Right, yeah.
Okay, what do you have to say for yourself?
I'm glad to hear that from Simpson & Simpson. We are the people...
Hold on, wait, hold on the house. Mr. Rosendahl's arriving, so.
Sorry for the interruption, folks.
All right. Need to get some WD-40 on those wheels, Bill.
Sorry. Yes.
We're happy to be joined by my colleague, Bill Rosendahl.
Requires a lot of concentration.
Bill's very dedicated. He's going through chemo radiation, so he's still showing up to work and going through the personal medical situation. You're right there, Bill. You're right there. still have.
I'm gaining weight. I put on almost 15 pounds, which is a good thing under the circumstances.
All right, you're set. Okay, we're joined by Councilmember Rosendahl. So we're on item 1 and 2, which is the audit, Simpson, and this is regarding the sewer construction maintenance fund. We've got the representatives here. So go ahead and continue, ma'am.
As I was saying, I was glad to hear that from Simpson and Simpson because we are the ones doing the accounting for the wastewater fund. And we work closely with them every year and during audit period. In fact, right now, there are Simpson and Simpson auditors in our office for the fiscal year in 2012. And I'd like to give the credit for the good work and that there are no such significant findings to my staff, which is headed by the division manager, Ursula Villanueva, and of course, our counterparts in the Bureau of Sanitation, headed by Dale Burgoyne. We are very much in a good teamwork when it comes to the funds accounting. We
And that-
try to be as accurate and transparent as possible.
And that's reflected in the audit, so that's good. Sir, your comments?
Well, I mean, I looked through the audits before,
Again,
and,
your name for the record, sir?
I'm sorry, pardon me?
Your name, repeat your name again.
Oh, I'm Dale Burgoyne from Financial Management Division and Sanitation.
Yeah, we did the introduction.
And
before you-
I looked through it, and I didn't see anything that was not what I would have expected from what happened in the last several years in the fund.
Okay, ma'am?
Same here. We accurately report all the expenditures and revenues that come through the FMS system, whatever system that we can capture all the information accurately and report it, and that's being audited by Simpson & Simpson.
So it sounds like everybody's doing well, and no problems to note on items number 1 and 2. At least that's what it looks like, and that's what you folks are verifying, so that's commendable. If every department ran that smooth, we'd probably be a real happy city. We wouldn't have anybody complaining about anything. Maybe we should put the sewer construction maintenance fund in charge of everything. It'll be good. And that's an important issue, because if we don't have that working well, because there's a lot of money that goes into that process, we'd really be in a heap of trouble. Mr. Rosendahl, any questions
Yeah, just a
on
quick
this?
comment or two. Obviously, I like the end that says, according to independent audit, there was no indication that the fund failed to comply with the terms and conditions of the wastewater system revenue bond program during these years. The audit calculated and verified the ratios of net revenue to debt service obligation for the bond program. Just curious, from the controller's office, why did you have to go out and hire an outside contractor? Why couldn't we have done it in-house? And how much did the outside contractor cost us?
That Simpson did the audit on behalf of the controller's office.
Yes, Matthias Farfan for the Office of the Controller. It's per charter. The charter actually states that the financial statements shall be audited by an independent accounting firm.
I see.
Yes.
And how much did it cost us?
For the wastewater fund, I believe, is it 74,000?
Yeah, 74,000.
74,000.
I'm sorry, what?
74,000.
And that-
$74,000?
And that's paid for by the fund.
Yes,
Pays for the fund, that's right.
74,000.
That's great, thank you.
yes, you're welcome.
So you're following the charter.
Yes,
See, that was a
Yeah.
good response.
That was a good one.
No options there.
74 grand, I mean, God bless us, but that's reasonable enough in my mind. How long did it take you to do the audit?
Right here, she did the audit, Simpson.
Yes, approximately 1.5 months.
A month and a half,
Yes.
and everything looked great.
We have like full cooperation from the fund management, and it has been improving. Like the timing has improved a lot. Before, like the capital asset is always a challenge because like it's one of the major asset of the fund. So I think it has like significantly improved. Like, and this year we hope to provide you with the audited financial statement even earlier.
Great, and will you do this how often do we do this audit of the?
annually.
Every year.
Yeah.
Great, super.
Okay, very good. Thank you all very much.
Okay.
Keep up the good work, and we will note and file this items number 1 and 2. Thank you much. let's go to number 3. This is the Energy Conservation Loan Program. Anybody else here on number 3? You got the whole thing in yourself.
I think it's just me.
Okay. And you are?
Kelly Cooper, Director of the Building Maintenance Division for General Services.
Okay. So tell us about the results.
Well, Adrian had sent me some questions after we met last time, do you have a copy of those? Because I have an extra copy here if you want.
Can you speak louder into that?
I
Hard to hear.
answered the questions that Adrian had sent to me. Council member, would you like to go through them?
Could you repeat your name again, ma'am?
I beg your pardon?
Your name again?
I'm sorry, Kelly Cooper, General Services Department, Building Maintenance Division. Okay.
Okay, so GSD responded after facility retrofitted staff reviews, monitors electrical consumption for 12 months after completion to ensure that the kilowatt savings identified in the technical proposal are being achieved. So we heard this item. After discussion of the issues, committee moved to continue the item so GSD could respond to specific questions posed to the department by me. A summary of those questions and responses by the department listed read. So if you can go with those 1 through number 9, just go ahead and respond to those issues that we brought up, if you would, please.
Sorry, just go over them?
Yeah.
Okay, so the first question was how much is saved per year in dollars? And the answer is 1.7 million, 1,768,000. However, until all the debts are paid, the savings go to the debt service.
Okay.
Okay, second question, since the GWP is no longer available and GSD has looked at other sources of funds, how much has the department been able to secure from other sources, and how long will these sources of funds last? Well, the GWP is still available, and I answered that in another one of these questions. GSD has looked at our funding, and we've received $13 million, which was expended this year by the middle of this year. And also QECB funding, and we've received an allocation of $12 million. That's spread over 3 years. The first year was a little over 6, and it's 2.5 this year, and then 2.5 next year. And the California Energy Commission loan program is available too. We've already had one loan funded through them, and we've got another loan pending. The second loan is for $426,000. Question number 3, how has the department overcome its challenges to the energy conservation program noted by the Controller's Office to finish some of the energy conservation projects? GSD has the expertise and ability to complete retrofit projects. GSD is only limited by availability of staffing and funds. Okay, question number 4. How many city facilities still need to be retrofitted? And the answer, approximately 200 facilities that are maintained by GSD.
And how many total facilities are they responsible for?
I beg your pardon?
How many total facilities?
About 400, almost 500.
Okay.
And the timeline to get the facilities done, once again, it's limited by funding and staffing, but if we were to have all the available resources, we could complete them in 2 years.
Okay.
Question number 5, how often does the department do facility audits to ensure that savings are being achieved? The answer, GSD hired an energy consultant with our funding to provide quarterly reports on energy savings of projects completed under the grant. The final report is due at the end of this year. GSD does not have the staffing available to perform these audits in-house or the funding to continue paying the consultant. Question number 6. With the GWP power rates just approved, will funding be available again through LADWP as part of the loan program? And the answer, DWP loans are currently available for energy retrofits, and the current rate for this quarter is 5.177%.
Now, I have a concern about that rate of 5.177. Rates have come down everywhere,
Right.
and I think that you were paying 6%. I mean, we could go to an outside source and get funding at a much lower rate. And if DWP is providing these for city facilities to do this retrofit, it seems ridiculous that we're paying such a high rate when on the open market, you can get much better rates, 2.5%, maybe 3%.
Right.
So what we need to do, no disrespect to Department of Water and Power, but we need to look for another place to get the money
Right.
and not pay, I mean, 5.177 is really a high rate for the water and power to charge us.
Right.
So we need to explore other opportunities for funding.
The California Energy Commission is either 1% or 3%. It changes.
1 to 3, and then we're.
Yeah, it depends. Sometimes they offer 1 and sometimes they offer 3. So we have only been getting, like, since that loan became available to us, that's where we're going for the funding.
Because when you look at the Department of Water and Power, which is a city entity, like the port, the airport, I mean, it's all part of the city family, while sometimes they're separate, and proprietary is separate from the rest of the general fund, they're still City of Los Angeles, and I can't understand why they would charge us such an incredible high rate
Right.
when we could get on the open market. It makes no sense. So before we go borrow more money from Water and Power, they either have to readjust the rate to a lower level, or we go to another source.
Okay.
So let's make that a note that we have to follow when you do additional funding. We compare the rate they're giving us with other competitive rates in the open market, whether it's the state or the feds or some institution out there.
And I'll second that, just for the record.
So let's make Paul, you got that?
Got it.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, next one, please.
Okay, question number 7. What is GSD doing to prepare for changes in technology for energy conservation? For example, LED is becoming more popular and becoming less expensive. What is GSD's plan here to integrate this type of technology or evolve so we can achieve maximum savings? And the answer, GSD is already implementing new energy conservation technologies like LEDs. For example, fluorescent lights in the Los Angeles Mall have been replaced with LEDs.
Okay.
Okay, question number 8. What other energy conservation measures is the department undertaking or exploring? For example, solar on city facilities, reduce HVAC power consumption, etc. The answer, GSD has installed LEDs, induction lighting, low wattage fluorescent lighting, delamped overlit areas, installed lighting controllers, installed cool roofing systems, installed variable frequency drives on HVAC equipment, installed the Energy Enterprise Information System in collaboration with the County of Los Angeles, replaced old HVAC equipment with more efficient SEER-rated equipment, upgraded building automation systems, installed window tinting, and utilized the Energy Portfolio Manager from the Department of Energy.
Okay.
And question number 9, does the department have a long-term plan, conservation energy plan in place or in development? Yes, but the implementation is dependent on staffing and funding. The GSD Energy Conservation Program has never been funded by the city. It has always been dependent on grants or loans from outside agencies. The City of Los Angeles needs to identify a stable source of city funds to implement a long-term energy conservation plan.
Instead of peaks and valleys, because we get it and then we don't, we get it and we don't. We go back and forth like a ping pong ball. Bill?
Yes, I have a series of questions, but I appreciate the chair's questions and the answers that you just gave. Just for the record, when can we anticipate the annual savings to begin to go toward paying energy bills and not debt service?
I don't have that information, but we have, I could get that information for you from our finance division.
I'll repeat one more time.
Okay.
When can we anticipate the annual savings to begin to go toward paying energy bills and not just debt service? Second question is, has a break-even point been identified as an indicator as to when we will begin to start seeing a return on our investment and savings on the city's energy bills?
Okay, so...
Okay, we'll give you that after this, so you can work on the answer. Will the loss of funding for outside energy consultant to provide quarterly reports? With the loss of funding for the outside energy consultant to provide quarterly records, how does GSD plan to continue to monitor the success of the energy conservation program. Okay, want an answer back on that?
Well, depends on funding. So we've got funding, one more year of QECB bond funding,
Yeah.
and then after that, we have no other funding identified.
Right, and I see that there. Are there other funding opportunities on the horizon that we could potentially look to?
The California Energy Commission has loans available.
So we'll see where that takes us. Will the program be viable after 2014, when the $12 million of QECB funding is expected to be fully expended?
I can't answer that.
Yeah, these are tough ones, and I certainly don't want to hold up moving it out, Mr. Chair, but I'd love to get those
Well,
answers.
why don't we do this? When's this going to council?
It's not until you tell us to schedule it for council.
Well, no, see, it's noted to note and file, but what we could do is request that it go forward with the information that's being requested by Mr. Rosendahl.
Sure, they can respond to council.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So we won't hold it here, we'll send it forward with the note and
Okay.
file. But the questions that my colleague asked, if you can get answers to that, so when it comes to the council, we will have those answers, so we'll know exactly where we're going with it.
Yeah, regardless of what the answers are, it's just for the record to have that. How much time do you think you need before we need to schedule it for council?
Okay.
You want a month, you want 3 weeks, 2 weeks?
How much time to get the answers for Mr. Rosendahl's questions?
4 weeks,
Okay.
maybe.
Fine.
So we'll do it in a month, send it to council,
Okay.
schedule it a month, and then hopefully you'll get that answer, and then we will be able to present this in council with the answers. But the thing that really I'm keyed on is that 5.177 percentage rate. We need to somehow come up with something more realistic.
Okay. Could I get a copy of the questions?
Yeah, Mr. Rosendahl will provide that.
Yes.
Yeah, he'll give you a
John
copy.
will give it to you right now.
There you go. They've got it right there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so you're going to note and file that, Ms. Rosendahl?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your time, and then you'll get the questions, and when you go to council, you get the answers, and we're
Okay.
set. Thank you for coming back. Thank you very much. Number 4, sir.
Item number 4, Chief Legislative Analyst to report relative to the Risk Management Working Group status report on improving risk management policies and practices to prevent high-risk liability in the Los Angeles Police and Fire Departments. This matter is continued from December 6, 2011.
All right, folks, if you're here for this question, come forward.
Mr. Chairman, Paul Smith, CLA. Your committee have formed this working group. You had an initial report in December. You asked some questions. You requested some more reporting. The CLA prepared a summary report of the group's work to date. The departments are here to answer your questions and to give a brief summary reports of their activities.
And I will say, to lead off on this particular situation, LAPD, who's here from LAPD?
I am, sir. Beth Correa, Department Risk Manager.
Okay, you're the risk manager for the department?
Yes, I am.
Okay. LAPD non-workers' compensation claims listed below and defined at the end of the section total approximately $110 million for the 6 years, averaging approximately $18.5 million each year. Police professional, 39.7%, auto liability, 27.9%, employment practices, 28.3%, and general liability, 4.1%. I have had an issue with risk management in the police department for a long time. Your new police commissioner has some real issues with risk management within the police department, and when we look at how much money the police department is paying out in liability claims, internal, external, those numbers are absolutely through the roof. And we push to try and get someone in place to establish a new practice and pattern. I haven't seen any improvement from where we were to where we are today with the liability that is reported to the public, outrageous numbers. When I look at motorcycle officers who are getting $1 million because there was a quota set, when I look at the internal issues that are taking place in the police department with liability, we can't sustain that. And then we're talking about a budget, we're talking about today, which I didn't vote for, a sales tax increase on the public because of public safety. These numbers are astronomical, and it doesn't seem to be any better. So if you can give us some information on the internal, the external, we'll get to the fire department in a minute, how those numbers need to come down. And whether it's something that we see on the news where officers take a handcuffed individual and throw it to the ground, which is obviously offensive to the people, then you talk about liability. I can understand shooting situations, officers' lives in danger, but the internal liability is absolutely ridiculous. It's not only sexual harassment, but person on person, and I'm only seeing a bit of it, but when you start adding up these numbers, it's outrageous. So take it away.
Well, I will start with where I started in this process. I was the person that you identified that was hired by the department to address these issues. I have an extensive background defending LAPD for the last 12 years, so I'm very, very familiar with their processes, their personnel, and the issues that are involved.
How long have you been in that position?
Since January. So since January, over the last 10 months, I have focused my efforts on 5 areas that I feel are the most newsworthy or budget-worthy items to address in the department. So that's not to say that there aren't other risk management issues out there. I've decided to focus on workers' compensation, police litigation, specifically officer-involved shootings, uses of force, employment litigation, FLSA litigation, and traffic. So those are the 5 areas that I'm focused on. And what I'm in the process of doing, I have 4 stages of a long-term plan. And that long-term plan is to focus on the behaviors of the individuals, because that's what we can control. We can't control how much the city attorney's office settles a case for. We can't control what a jury's going to think when our officers are in the courtroom, or what a judge might rule on specific cases. What we can control is our behavior that lands us in the lawsuit in the first place. So through that, towards those ends, I myself have gone to a lot of training on how to identify those issues, what are the different ways we need to investigate these issues, so that we're gathering the right kind of information to identify the patterns and trends appropriately and come up with the interventions that are necessary for those different issues. And even these 5 different high-risk issues have different strategies that have to go into effect to implement and monitor those strategies. So there's no real one route to see a cost reduction. This is a process that's going to take place over the next several years. We will not see reductions in lawsuits right away, because what policies, procedures, and trainings that gets implemented today or tomorrow, the statute of limitations won't run for 2 years. So we're not going to see over these last 10 months or even the next 10 months a significant drop in litigation against the department, because everyone's got 2 years to file a complaint against us for what we're doing today. So with respect to the different processes, the first stage is just gathering the data. I'm looking at what are our automated systems, what are our reporting systems, who's tracking what information, is it the right information to track? And so what I'm trying to do is set up processes to capture that information so that we can see the monthly trends. The next step is to review policies and procedures and make sure that our policies and procedures are up to date, accurate, and not harming us in the courtroom. So for example, putting in shall when there isn't a legal mandate for shall, and then it turns into an issue of, well, we can't even do our own policies when we say shall. I'm also, after I look at policies, procedures, focusing then on our training. Are we training the right topics? Are we training the right issues? And are we focusing the proper issues on the right audience? Are we, telling our supervisors one thing and telling our non-supervisors another? So really just fleshing out that system. And then the next phase is accountability. And that's not just discipline. Accountability is also looking at hiring the right people. Are we making our supervisors become risk managers, or are they just interested in reducing crime rates? And so we want to make sure that the accountability is across the board from beginning to end, and it doesn't just start with our police officers, but it goes all the way through the department. So those are the different phases. The phase that I'm in right now is the first phase, which is gathering information, making sure we're gathering the right information, and then I'm working on phase 2 in the employment area, which is updating our policies and procedures so that we are up to date and in compliance with the law. So that's what we're doing, generally speaking. Some of the newer things that I've done, you bring up the employment, the internal issues. I just created a new unit. They started this DP, and it's the Risk Management Coordination Unit. They are an early warning system. These are detectives. There will be 8. They will go out across the department and be the eyes and ears in all the divisions, random inspections, random appearances, who's doing what, who's saying what am I seeing, what am I hearing, on all the different issues that I'm interested in. So not just employment, but also the traffic. Are they hearing about overdriving? Are they hearing about maybe a non-cat out in the field that, kind of went awry? And so they will take that information, bring it back, and then I'll set up the appropriate meetings with the commands that are involved to let them know, these are the issues that are going on in your division. What is your strategy to address them? So that's a new unit that's just started. They're out there. They're excited. Everybody's welcoming them, and I think that's going to have a major impact for us as far as our internal issues. We're looking at workers' comp. We're looking at working with the city personnel department to get the new system in place that will help us identify trends. We've already identified in our review process a number of easy fixes that will help streamline the information that gets reported so that claims are being processed and handled faster and people are getting back to work faster. Let's see, on the use of force, we're doing new training strategies. We're doing a team strategy approach to these uses of force so that everyone's got a defined task when they are on a scene or reporting to a scene, so that you don't have 10 people doing the same thing. They all have a coordinated, unified role. Traffic, we've got a new unit started, the Multi-Collision Investigation Task Force, I think is what it's called. They respond to all of the A and K car accidents, so serious injury, death, involving city personnel, not just LAPD. And I'm working with them on a new investigative approach called human factors analysis, and that will help us get to the cause root behind these accidents so that we are looking at not just the driver, but preconditions for an unsafe act. We're looking at the supervisor's involvement in the unsafe act, and we're looking at the message being sent by the organization as far as handling those incidents. And so it's a top-down review whenever we have these types of accidents. And so these are some of the different things that we're working on. It's really a department-wide effort. A lot of the information gets coordinated through me. I'm just one person. I obviously can't handle all of the different responsibilities, but I do make sure that I am involved in meeting with the different commands and meeting with the different entities to ensure that we're all working towards the same effort, which is the reduction of claims.
Okay, I have a number of questions. My colleague wants to start, and then
And I appreciate the chair allowing me to do that. I have to go to another committee meeting, TCT, down the hall that's about to start, and the room's packed. Quickly, what are your thoughts of the LAPD and the LA Fire Department on the idea of allocating funding for liability claims to their departments rather than the current practice of using the accounts in the city attorney's office?
As far as pushing liability, I think there would have to be a better effort between the city attorney's office and the departments in understanding what's involved, being a part of the attorney-client privilege discussions,
Yes.
so that we can have an informed participation in the litigation and what's happening. And then I think, having a sharing of costs could be an appropriate route. But at this time, we're not viewed, the department is not viewed as the client, so there's information that we do not have access to. So it wouldn't, in my opinion, I don't think it's appropriate to hold us responsible for information that we don't have access
And
to.
I appreciate your questions and the thoughts you have and the way you want to go about it. It helped me with some of the other questions I have here, and obviously we look for that report back at the point when you feel comfortable enough to do that. What are the LAPD and the Fire Department thoughts of the Police Protective League's suggestion to restore binding arbitration on disciplinary matters as an alternative to employees filing lawsuits? And what led up to this procedure being eliminated in 1986?
I haven't gone back that far in the process, but what I am looking at is a new section in the department called Alternative Dispute Resolution Section. We would have different layers, different categories, I guess, of the types of issues that would be fruitful towards settlement discussions, including discipline. And whether it would be a setting that it's a department manager representative and the employee, or we'll be using outside attorneys volunteering their time, The format hasn't really been worked out, but we're trying to have different categories, so category 1, 2, or 3, and getting a binding settlement discussion in that to handle not just discipline, but also employment issues as well.
Now, I like your attitude and your energy and where you're moving it. Who do you report to?
The chief of police,
So you have direct access to the chief,
yes,
unencumbered.
yes.
Fabulous. What high-risk issues has the LAPD new risk manager, this is you, identified, and is there anything that can be shared with the fire department in the interim, prior to the appointment of their risk manager, to address some of the major issues identified in their independent assessment audit?
I read that report, and I think the focus should shift towards the focusing on the causes of the lawsuits as opposed to what happens during the course of a lawsuit. Because again, a lot of that is out of the control of the department.
Right.
What a judge does, what a jury does, you have no influence on that. But you do have influence in the ability to control what happens before the lawsuit is filed. So I think I can work with them on the systems that they should have in place so that they are gathering and tracking the right information from the beginning.
I think that's great, and I like that, again, the logic you're using too. And just for the fire department response to independent assessors litigation audit, be ready. When will you guys be ready to do this?
I don't get back.
I
I'll get
don't
back
know.
with you, sir, on that.
Pardon me?
I have to get back with you.
Sure, I look forward to that because obviously timetables matter and how we play this thing out. And once again, I just got to thank you. The chief put a full engine company up in the Palisades as soon as we got the red flag day. I couldn't ask more than that. He's been tremendously responsive to my constituents in the Palisades, and we're very grateful. And I know that throughout the entire mountain range, you guys have really staffed up for this red flag notion, so it's very comforting.
Which has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
I know, and that was a shout out.
But it sounds good.
Thank you, Mr.
It
Chair.
sounds good.
Mr.
Can I-
Chair,
Well, my colleague was very positive and complimentary. I'm going to get back to the basics of life. I spent 33 years in the police department. I've been gone for almost 12, still a reserve officer. We spent $40 million on the consent decree. We've got teams, too, that's supposed to catalog and categorize everything, trouble officers, this and that. With all the money we've spent, over $40 million, we're reinventing the wheel once again with what you're saying. My concern is,
so.
we have teams, too, that's supposed to track officers. We have a system in place that's supposed to find the problem officers, and that's what Team 2 is about. The consent decree that the department was under, over $40 million. We're still having the same problems. Now, I don't think that taking new unit risk management and taking detectives out of the field and taking them out of their assignments and putting them in the field is going to solve the problem. You've got supervisors that are involved in liability cases who get promoted. You've got lieutenants who get promoted to captain. You've got captains who get promoted to a higher level. My concern is the reality of this is I'm not in favor of reinventing the wheel. What do we spend $40 million for? What do we have a Teams 2 for? What do we have the consent decree for? When what you're saying is we're now going to go into these things which were already supposed to be done after the consent decree. So when I'm looking at the policies, the procedures, accountability, risk managers, trends, that's all supposed to be in place now since we had the controversy, since we had the riots, since we had the upheaval within the police department. We have a SCID team, Special Investigation Team for Investigation. Now you talk about Multi-Collision Task Force. All these things have been in place. So what are we doing to get compliance to reduce the liability? What cops do, What civilians do, civilians do. The issue is it's costing the taxpayers millions upon millions upon millions of dollars. We are not looking to reinvent the wheel after the consent decree, after Teams 2. Teams 2 is supposed to be the end-all to keep track of officers' conduct, their sick time, their vacation time, complaints. Every complaint has to be logged. Every complaint has to be fully investigated. We've got an inordinate number of people working investigations within the police department. So what I'm hearing from you basically is we're going to start doing something different than what was already set in place and $40 million worth to say we're not advancing. I don't want to criticize you as an individual assigned to this section, but I thought that things would be handled in a positive fashion. For example, hold commanders responsible, hold captains responsible. But when I see liability payouts and the people get promoted to a higher level, to me the system's not working. And I think it's reflected in the numbers that we're talking about, millions upon millions of dollars. So while you've got these people out in the field, the supervisors who have been trained, who have a Teams 2 that are supposed to check and keep everything documented, and the consent decree, which renovated the police department. It was a new policy on how they can do and hold everybody accountable. When someone's going to get booked, go this, that, and the other. I mean, I'm not hearing that we're advancing. I'm hearing we're going back to the drawing board to come up with another concept to make it better. We can't go through another concept to make it better. We need to take what we've got. And since we spent all the money on it, now how does Teams 2 fit into this scenario that you bring up?
Well, you've conflated a number of issues, so I want to try and pull them apart to address your comments and your questions. The consent decree in Teams 2 focuses specifically on police tactics out in the field, how they're dealing with the public as far as arrests, searches, stops, all of those issues. So that has a very small percentage of payout in litigation when you're looking at the entire department liability. That's actually one of the smaller areas of police liability, and that's the police, I forget how you categorized it in the report, professional standards liability. So that's, Teams 2 has nothing to do with traffic. Teams 2 has nothing to do with the employment side. Teams 2 has nothing to do with workers' comp. Teams 2 is a database that summarizes information so that it's readily available to supervisors and above to monitor an employee. There are certain benchmarks on stops, on arrests, on uses of force. They have benchmarks that are programmed in. It's all very formulated out. And when those benchmarks or thresholds are reached by an employee, the warning goes out. And the only way to close out a warning system is for the supervisor to say what action they took in response to the flag on the employee. So that system's in place and it's working and we're not changing anything. It's very specifically prescribed under the consent decree what we had to watch, what thresholds had to be in there, who we were supposed to monitor, who they were supposed to be compared to. All of that was negotiated, approved by the federal court, and that's where the $40 million went. And that system's there. I'm not touching it. I'm not doing anything with it. I am focusing on all the non-Teams 2 issues. So I'm looking at the employment stuff, again, has nothing to do with Teams 2. The traffic, nothing to do with Teams 2. Workers' comp, nothing to do with Teams 2. And your general observation that, nothing's changed despite all of this money and all this time, then becomes the issue of we should do something new. We should reinvent the wheel. We should take a look at what we've been doing for the last 33 years was your experience and maybe try something new. I'm the outsider. I'm the one that has the benefit of all of the jury trials, talking to the people, talking to the citizens, talking to the community members to see what is their perception, what is their opinion of the department. And I bring all that information into the department. And that's where my insight comes from. And I let them know, yeah, you might think that that's the appropriate way to handle a situation, but the person that's going to be in the jury box is going to have the following problems with it. And so that's where we're coming together from both sides to come up with ways to address these problems. So we're no longer looking in terms of discipline, not discipline, payout, not payout. We're looking in terms of changing employee behavior. We're looking at changing the culture of the department. These are big concepts that require a lot of planning and a lot of forethought so that we can see the change down the road and we can have a dramatic long-term lasting impact on the department and how much liability it's responsible for the city of Los Angeles.
The problem is we don't have the time or the money to continue down the same path we're going. We don't have the millions of dollars to pay out in liability claims when people are abused and convicted in court, the department being the convicted in court, and liability claims.
Well, I
Police,
can't address...
police professional, 39.7%. Auto liability, 27.9%. Employment practice, 28.3%. General liability, 4.1%. Non-workers' compensation claims. Now, I understand an officer gets hurt on the duty. I understand a firefighter gets hurt on duty. I understand that. We've got to absorb that. But when I'm talking about situations that we're currently seeing, practices that the department doesn't seem to have a control over after all of the litigation, after all of the issues, after all the reviews, where we are. And I just don't think that we've got sufficient dollars in the fund, since police department takes so much money out, along with the fire department, public safety, to wait 2 or 3 or 4 years to come up with some solutions that need to be implemented. That's the problem. We have so much the internal friction within the police department that results in liability. Attorneys file cases, they win those cases, millions of dollars. You worked in the city attorney's office, now you're working within the police department, but you're aware of the culture. And when I saw this whole consent decree come about, and the liability come about, and the payouts, and we started analyzing it, and I'm only going by what we're reading in the newspaper, not all of the stuff that happens in budget and finance that comes to us in closed session. It's like we haven't advanced at all. We're going backwards when it comes to the situation. That's why I'm so adamant that something needs to be done, and I don't see how having a new unit, risk management, and having more people pulled out of the field is going to make things better. It's the supervisors, it's the command staff and the divisions that are ultimately responsible for the activities of their personnel. It doesn't seem to be working. And you're one person. You got a department almost 10,000 personnel. It needs to come down from a high command, and there needs to be people held accountable. But time after time, I've seen the liability payout, I've seen the person promoted to another level.
Well, I'm not going to talk about specific cases. That's a closed session item. I'm
talking about cases that have been in the news.
And again, the facts and the information that support all of that are, a lot of them are privileged, and I'm not going to have that discussion here. What I can say are the cases that you talked about.
I'm chairing this committee. I am not pleased with risk management in the police department. I'll make it very clear. And if you're going to reinvent the wheel, then you're going to have some serious problems with what we're going to do in this committee. Because putting more people out, watching what they're doing, to me is not the answer. It's not the answer. The culture should have changed. The accountability should have changed. And when I see cases coming for us and people in the command staff getting promoted when there's liability, and the liability is held in the department, that's a serious problem. No one's addressed that. And when an officer takes a female and throws her on the ground with handcuffs, and he's got 20 years on the job, which is when published in the news, that to me is a serious issue. I don't know what's been happening with it, but that turns the public against us, and it turns the liability. And I'm just looking at the dollars and cents. We have a job to protect and serve, and we have a financial disaster that is within this city, and we're trying to fix it. And you somehow have the responsibility now to fix it. And I'm just saying, we don't have years to make it happen. It's got to happen. It's got to happen quick. You've been in that position. We started this August 3rd, 2011. You've got that position. It's a demanding position. I won't question that. But you have a new commissioner who's talking about risk management, who's talking about work comp, who's talking about all the issues. Do you have an ombudsman in the police department now? Used to resolve a lot of issues. Some of those short-circuit things that could be done. But I am very frustrated with seeing these payouts over and over and over. So I wish you well in it, but I am really not impressed with what is happening with what we have on the plate.
Just to be clear,
go ahead.
The cases that you are seeing on payouts are 2 years old, and that's because of the statute of limitation. The department is making changes every day since I've been in my position in January. Every day, but we will not see the effect of those changes for 2 years. So it's not that I've put some arbitrary timeline on the actions that we're taking. The reality is the actions that our employees are doing today will not have an effect for 2 years in litigation. So that's just the nature of the system. As far as me being one person and I'm taking people out of the field, I report to the chief of police. He supports my plan. We are working on this together. I meet with him at least once a week, if not 3 times a week, to discuss the different issues in the department. I work with all 3 assistant chiefs for the different offices to make sure that everyone is working together on these strategies. The people that I'm using in the new unit for the early morning system did not come out of the field. They came out of risk management division, which was reorganized. And I took those empty positions that we weren't using and I've created the new unit. So I haven't removed anyone from the field. The department hasn't removed anyone from the field to address these issues.
Okay, well, you said new unit risk management. That's what I would assume, that they would come out of something.
They came out of what's now called Legal Affairs Division. So that's 84 people assigned to Legal Affairs Division, and I have a staff of about 15 now, including these vacancies for detectives, so that we have an early warning system, which is what you're talking about. You want to know about ombuds? That's what this process is. This process is these officers, these detectives going out there and seeing problems so that we are on top of them immediately. So that when we have our new section, Alternative Dispute Resolution, which is going to be, or used to be ombuds, it's now got a new name, Alternative Dispute Resolution Section. They will be settling and resolving these cases so that they don't turn into lawsuits. So all of these new systems are going to work together to stop litigation from happening. They will have settlement agreements, they will have settlement authorities, and we will see the reduction in time. But that is because of the nature of the legal system. What we do today, we will not know the effect of for 2 years.
And I'm saying that we don't have 2 years of money to continue paying the liability
I can't change what
cases.
happened 6 months ago, or 12 months ago, or 18 months ago.
Well,
It's already happened.
The public believed that Teams 2 and the consent decree was going to change the direction of the department to reduce what was past practices within the police department.
And it has on the professional liability. In that category of cases, those are the issues that the consent decree was focused on. And those have steadily gone down over the last 12 years.
Well, it says 39.7% police professional, the claims. That's
And the
almost
data
40.
that I have that's 12 years old shows it's been steadily going down for the last 12 years.
Okay, well, this is $110 million for the 6 years, averaging approximately $18.5 million each year. I'm just saying those dollars go into services. Those dollars go into salaries and benefits and equipment. I had someone from the department contact me to say they want me to pony up some money so they can buy some motorcycles for officers because they don't have any money to buy motorcycles. You know, you imagine how many motorcycles we could buy with $18.5 million? I mean, we're talking about general liability, employment practices, auto liability. I'm just so frustrated by seeing the payouts and honestly not seeing an improvement in what we look at as risk management. And before they put you in there, I don't know who was in there with risk management. We formed a committee to say we need to do something to address risk management. And you got put in this pressure cooker because not much was being done. Other than the consent decree and Teams 2, you think of what's been happening. And it's a risky profession. I know it for a fact. But the fact is, when we're hanging out in the fence, there's really no defense. And I've also pushed for in-car video in all the bureaus based upon the reduction in complaints in South Bureau. To me, that's positive proof that an investment up front in in-car video is going to reduce, if not eliminate, a whole lot of complaints when it's there. And people who make complaints, they did this, they did that. Hey, there's the video, clear and simple. The Sheriff's Department is now moving forward with video on the deputies themselves in jail to reduce those complaints. But we just can't wait 2 years because the money is not there to sustain. If the voters don't pass this sales tax increase, I don't know what to tell you, because the chief's talking about cutting officers and civilians, but you've got a very demanding job. I won't doubt that. I would not want to take that task, but it's a demanding job, and it's all about the dollars and how we're going to have dollars to fund the city, including the police department. So you do have a commissioner, the newest commissioner, who's very concerned about risk management when it comes to work comp. He's very focused on that, and he is obviously going to do what he can do as a commissioner. I'm just looking at dollars and cents, and the concern is the more dollars we have, the more we can do to provide for the police, the fire, and all these other departments.
And we are equally concerned about that, and we are working every day to change things so that we have a new process, a new culture, new technologies to reduce liability. We want to have a better relationship at the end of the day with the community. And when we see these kinds of numbers, we realize it negatively affects our relationship. And that is our concern. That is where our focus is.
Okay.
That's, the whole principle behind community-based policing.
Yep.
And so that is why the chief is taking this issue so seriously, hiring someone, and I meet every day, all day on these issues to make sure we are moving forward. the technology, the in-car video. We're also now looking at technology to put in the cars for our officers so that we could track driving behavior. That's going to have a dramatic reduction in liability in the traffic side. It's revolutionized the trucking industry.
Yep.
We want to bring those same benefits to us. So we are working on these issues. We see the benefits from, like you said, in-car video, little money up front, long-term savings. Those are the ideas that we're working on. Those are the things that we're doing.
And that is the condensing it down because of the essence of time and the lack of funding. And with 109 realignment, more bad guys on the street, more pursuits, more altercations. People understand that, but it's the internal stuff that hopefully an ombudsman or the risk manager can say, you know what, we can resolve this by a conversation. And I don't know how many are working internal affairs, but I've heard the numbers there are staggering because of the complaint policy. And I'm not saying don't take complaints, but when someone's making multiple complaints and they just become a systematic, let's make a complaint to bog down the system starts to collapse. So
That's another area that we're looking at.
it gets blown out of proportion. But the issue for us, at least with me here, it's workers' compensation claims totaling approximately $140 million for the last 6 fiscal years, averaging $23.4 million annually. I mean, that's Kobe Bryant makes $24 million playing basketball. We're paying that annually in liability and work comp. So we're going to continue this, obviously, to see some improvement. But let's hear from the fire department. Now that we talked about the police department. And I used to be a firefighter in my dreams. You like that, Paul, huh? Okay, go ahead. No, I got that. 18.5. Okay, what has the fire department done since the risk management's become a factor with you folks?
Well, sir, as of right now, we do not have our civilian risk manager on board. In the last 3 years, 2 years specifically, the fire department has seen a dramatic reduction in our liability. If you take a look at our employment practices, our worker compensation, general liability, and auto liability, the fire department's extremely proud at the results of the plan that we've put in place.
You're like at $3 million a year.
Which one, sir?
Year 3, fire non-workers' compensation claims total approximately $17.7 million for 6 years, averaging approximately $3 million a year. For auto, employment practice, and general liability, your employment practices were 89.7%.
If you take a look at fiscal year 10-11 and 11-12,
Improved.
we had a $10.5 million reduction.
Yep.
And so you were talking to the PD about how many motorcycles you could buy. How many motorcycles can you buy with $10.5 million? You take a look at that reduction.
You probably buy a fire truck with that.
By a lot of things. And if you take a look also at employment practice cases against the fire department, there's nothing in the hopper right now. So with the advent of the professional standards division and also with risk management, if you take a look at what our employment practice liability is, we can always improve, but we're extremely proud of that number, when we're also extremely proud to put ourselves up against any city department on our reduction and what we've done to reduce that number.
But there's always been the practice in the fire department, since they worked together, they lived together for an extended period of time. There was a lot of, shall we say, I don't want to go into history, but there were things that would happen that would be kept in-house. And then once it became an issue, then all of a sudden the bandwagon started and liability. So whatever the department has done to say, this is a professional organization, you're not in a fraternity anymore, you're here as an employment from the city of LA doing a professional job. Because I know from my own tours at some of the fire stations in the past, there's a whole different attitude than what it was previous.
Like with my colleague from the police department, changing the culture of the organization, it's a huge shift.
Yes, it is.
But we're extremely proud at what we've been able to accomplish on a limited budget. Our risk management section is extremely small, but we've worked very, very hard on education and training, and the things that you mentioned about people being promoted that have, marks in their history. Unfortunately, right now, because of the civil service rules, there's not much we can do. But we are out there trying to, like my colleague said, we're trying to do it through an educational component, that they have to understand that it's not acceptable. The tough financial times that we're in, the amount of money that it goes out is, it doesn't work anymore. I mean, I came on 33 years ago, and just like yourself, when you came on the PD, I just conducted EEO training today for my section, and I've changed. And I've got to train the new people to demonstrate to them that what was once accepted or considered cavalier or a good thing is not. We can't do that anymore. And so we're a professional organization, and when it comes to the employment practice liability, we're extremely proud.
No, there's obviously been improvement. It's a different era because litigation, as you know, is the key to success. And no matter what the issue is, no matter what the crime is, money seems to level it out. So whether there's someone murdered or someone has this, money, money, money. And that money comes out of that fund that provides for the police and the fire and sanitation and everybody else. And as you have more and more claims, and people say, well, hey, they got $1 million, why don't I jump in and get $1 million? And there's the case that's going on now in West Traffic, where two folks got, and I was in court on this situation, where each one got $1 million. One guy retired, one guy still working, everybody else, wait, hey, they got there, why don't I jump in and get my $1 million? So now it spreads like an illness. Well, hey, he got his, why don't I get mine? And that's one of the problems. Instead of saying, it's a different mentality, but there's got to be systems in place so it doesn't happen, because those dollars that go out, $2 million here, $2 million here, those are salaries, benefits, and equipment. And when you look at the expenditures versus what's coming in, it doesn't balance. And where it's just a few, it's multiplied tenfold, which is why we have to have risk management, why we have to have these standards that weren't in place in the past. If a fire truck's going to a call and they get in a collision, we understand that. There's liability, we have to take care of it. Police officer gets involved in a shooting, innocent person gets hurt, that's liability. But it's all those other issues that the police department, fire department, you say, wait, this shouldn't be happening. And these liability cases, and the juries look, hey, here's a couple $1 million. City's got big budget, give them a few $1 million. And every time we give them a few $1 million, that's coming out of what we need to do for the services. So when you start adding up the total amount, it's astronomical. In the big departments, police, fire, you look at library, recs and parks, other departments, seldom if ever. But the police and fire are the ones where you look at the huge liability. The police, number one.
Well, like I say, with the employment practices, our liability is, compared to any department in the city with 4,000 members is, extremely proud. Auto liability, we had 46 claims that were paid out, 46. Now we have 1,300 runs a day, 1,300 runs with an average of 3 apparatus responding. That's that's almost 4,000 vehicles running in a day. And that doesn't count going to the market, shopping, fire prevention, move-ups. 4,000 times 365, and we had 46 accidents where we paid out liability. It's
low number.
It's mind-boggling, and that's through the efforts of risk management, working with our in-service training on conducting training and driving, and then holding people accountable for the accidents that they get into. When it comes to workers' comp, our numbers have been reduced. The thing that the fire department can do in terms of work comp is reduce our claims. We don't really have a say on the amount of money paid out. That goes with personnel department and third-party administrator.
But to prevent that from happening.
Pardon me?
To prevent that claim from happening.
We prevent the claim from happening, and we're down, let's see, about 70, in the last 3 years, we're down 70 for the year. And what we did there is we put an accountability upon our supervisors. Let's say we go out on an incident and a member isn't wearing their proper protective gear, and they get injured. Well, now, in the old days, it would be upon the member. Now, the supervisor will face disciplinary action because the supervisor's in control of the emergency scene. So it becomes not only the member who doesn't follow the rules, we put it upon the supervisor also, and we've seen a decrease in the injuries. And then what we've also done is we've put out performance measurements to all of our fire stations, all of our battalions, all of our divisions per platoon, where we break the injuries up by emergency, non-emergency, athletic injuries, training injuries, etc. And we have a performance measurement upon the supervisors so you can see how you're doing against people that work at the same fire station, the fire station next to you, so that when it comes time for an evaluation, you have a performance measurement, much like LAPD with the comp stats, more like a fire stat, but that's a performance measurement upon the supervisor.
Do you still have physical fitness standard for people who are on the job, not going through the academy?
Everything is performance-based. So we are not able to say somebody is overweight or
But we used to have that. We used to have that.
We don't, sir.
The law does not allow it.
Pardon me?
The law does not allow it.
To have physical fitness standard?
Right, it has to be performance-based.
Well, wouldn't it be performance-based if you have some type of, when you look at heart issues, I don't know how the fire department, police department go with the heart issues, diabetes, obesity, all those factors feed into this. And we used to have a PFQ, physical fitness qualification.
Right now, we have essential functions, and I believe the fire department's set up the same way, so that each position, each pay grade, and whatnot has essential functions, and if you can perform or cannot perform, that decides whether you stay as a member of the departments.
You could weigh 400 pounds and you may not look healthy, but it depends on how you perform in doing your job, on going out on a response or being at a fire or being able to perform the maintenance around the fire station.
But they don't do physical fitness where they check your heart and check your blood sugar and all that. None of that stuff's done anymore.
Well, currently there is.
But we used to do that at Central Receiving Hospital.
We used to, and there is also mandatory medicals. Mandatory medicals will increase your work comp costs. A lot of people think it's going to decrease them, but the reality is it will increase them in the for 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, because you're going to identify people that have medical issues. That's going to be a claim, and then it's going to cost money for that person to be fixed. It's much better from an insurance carrier. It's much better that I drop dead of a heart attack here than to discover that I have a heart problem. Now they're going to have to pay many years of me being, treated for my heart condition. So,
like the SWAT team. The SWAT has mandatory physical workout every day.
It's essential functions, again. There's different criteria to be in SWAT than there's to be a P2. And then you have to look at if you're a P2 out in the field or are you P2 inside. And so it's all very based on the assignment. And again, it has to be tied into performance. Otherwise, you get into disability discrimination issues, that sort of thing. So.
Well, we could probably run the track a little bit, huh?
I was up at the police academy this morning, sir.
There you go. All right, so it looks like you folks need to put somebody in place. You don't have anybody in place yet. Managed hiring still holding the position?
I believe we got the authority for an exempt position, but I'm not sure.
Okay, according to my notes, has the managed hiring committee approved this position? Why the delay? Approaching the halfway point fiscal year, what is needed to get this position filled? What will be the duties? Paul, you know anything about that?
I'll talk to my supervisor and get back with you, sir.
Yeah, find out, because we need to figure out what you're going to do, unless you want to take care of the fire department and the police department.
I could show you a lot of the systems that we're putting in place, that's for sure. We can certainly meet and.
A lot of them would.
I'm more than happy to.
A lot of them would probably transfer over to the fire department. The systems that they have, the collisions, issues, work comp would probably be duplicate within, because you're running code 3, they're running code 3. There's probably a lot of duplication that could be shared, which would help whoever comes in on the search for a risk manager who should report to the fire chief, to the police chief, to say, you know what, this is an important position. And when the mandate comes down to say, you know, we're getting monthly reports and this division or that division's having problems, we need to do something to intercede before it gets totally out of control. Which then it comes to us and say, here's another liability, another liability, another liability. And the city attorney seldom says reject the claim. Most of the time it's, you know, approve the claim. And then we're saying, here comes a few $1 million. And that's what affects me every single time, more millions down the road. So with the police department, the risk manager done, we know what you've done, the liability committee, department, early identity risks, new risk manager, improved coordination with the city attorney. How's the relationship with the city attorney when it comes to what you folks need to do with the liability issues?
Right now, I have Legal Affairs Division reports to me that consists of 86 personnel, including a captain. They work with the city attorney's office and working up the files, going to court, that sort of thing. When the cases get closed out, a report gets generated back to the police department about personnel issues, whether someone needs to be part of the REMAC, which is the Risk Management Executive Committee system to monitor people identified through Teams 2, that kind of a thing. They give training ideas. They identify, again, behaviors that need to be changed, whether through training, policy, procedure, accountability, that kind of stuff. So not
that's
only...
in place.
That stuff's in place.
Now, your effectiveness with 21 divisions, specialized divisions, air support, underwater dive team, I mean, how much access do you have with all those entities?
I have all access. I report to the chief, so what I do is a reflection of the chief. And so I work specifically with those captains of those divisions, but I also work closely with the assistant chiefs. We meet regularly, and I have unfettered access.
Are they sending down the message?
Yes.
What were you going to say? LAFD has authorized risk manager position and budget approved to be filled by a managed hiring committee. LAFD is in the process of developing recruitment selection plan. So apparently the fire department's looking into establishing that position, which would then be able to hopefully reduce this incredible liability. If we look at the total between the police and the fire, Adrian, do we have that, the total, police and fire? If you add them both together?
One thing that the fire department would like from the city attorney's office is they used to provide twice a year, they'd put out a report of all the claims and litigation that were specific to the fire department. Because of budgetary cuts, they have stopped sending that out. They will send us out the case, but there's not a summary, and it makes it very difficult to ensure that we have all the cases that they have. And it was a pretty nice document that they used to provide to the department.
Okay.
That is no longer being provided. If you were able to mention that, it would be...
We will put that in the report, that requesting that the city attorney return to that practice, because it gives you an opportunity to review, and the firefighters, the paramedics, to what's going on with it.
Especially the claims. See, we have so many claims that the city attorney's office handles a lot of the claims. I don't have the staff to be on top of every claim.
They can redact the name, just put the situation.
Oh, no, we're able to get the...
The names?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The name of the case and the case number.
And the police department used to have a rap sheet that would come out, and whoever got this wouldn't give the name, it would give the rank.
Right. That's still available online. As far as what the fire department was talking about, my legal affairs division reports to me on a weekly basis what's in trial, what's for settlement, but I also get monthly reports on all of our litigation. So my staff works with the city attorney's office to get that information.
Now, how's that disseminated to the troops or to the command staff down the ladder? Or is it?
It's privileged information, so it's need to know, right to know. If there's something that's specifically going on in a division that needs to be addressed right now, then I will get that command in a meeting, and we'll have that discussion and work out a plan for resolving the problem. So it's really a case by case and wrapped up in the attorney-client privilege.
Because I understand the attorney-client privilege, that if something could be disseminated to the troops at roll call, well, they have roll call, and they say, okay, you know, so-and-so got this, that, and the other, we paid $10 million for this, we paid $5 million, something, because the cops on the street, sometimes they don't, you know, they see it on the news maybe, and they never follow up.
I'm starting in December a department risk manager's bulletin. It'll be 2 pages, nice and short. First page will cover whatever issue I'm seeing a pattern in, so that we have, you know, this,
Yeah,
how
that's
to
good.
identify, how to resolve, and then the second page of that bulletin will have our litigation stats.
Okay.
What we've won, because we've won so many things that people don't know about.
They don't tell people about that.
They get discouraged by the settlements and the liability payouts, and so it'll be a summary each month, without names, without cases,
Right.
but just in the different categories. So that will go out to everyone on the department.
Because I can remember the rap sheet at roll call would be read, and it would
Right.
give you information to, you know what, if I do this, this is it, this, you know.
Yeah, it's the same concept.
Yeah, I mean, because risk management is really so much more serious and expensive now than getting involved in, you know, some other type of situation. You know, well, you got 2 days for this, you got 3 days off for that, but, you know, we paid $5 million because you did this. You did $10 million because you did that. That gets people's attention, because it seems that the disciplinary process, while it's in place, the financial impact is multiplied so great from where it used to be. And it just seemed, maybe it's just a sign of the times. But like I say, when the shrinking budgets, we've got an issue with that. How, what do you have a total?
You wanted to know the total we have for both departments, right?
Yeah.
Per year, about 21 million.
21 million, between the two departments, about $21 million. That's all categories.
Not all counts, no, those are the
Non-work comp?
non-comp.
Non-work comp, $20 million a year.
Right, but I mean, in all due respect to the police department, I would like to distance myself from there.
3 is for
Yeah, I'd like to distance myself from that number.
So
That's all.
17 from the police,
18 and 3.
18.
18.
We do
Yeah.
have 13,000 employees.
Yeah, I know. I see them, and you know that, no criticism, they do a great job, but somehow they got to realize that every time a case is filed or it's settled, millions of dollars, that is their pay raise, that's their cash overtime, that's their equipment. Again, there's just such little, and even with this, if this tax increase goes through, this half-cent sales tax, there's still going to be a deficit, even with that.
And then also, sir, I just really want to emphasize to you, your group, the fire department takes this very, very seriously, especially the work comp. And we work very closely with the personnel department, especially AGM David Luther. And we've come up with some really innovative ideas, or I should say they've come up with some innovative ideas, and they've taken our input. And just as an example, if an average injury,
David here.
David he was
Luther,
here.
come on up, David Luther.
And just as an example, if the average injury, a person is off for 30 days, work comp costs, the injuries are going to happen. It's about getting the people the treatment. You brought up the Kobe Bryant example. When I first took over risk management, there was a schedule on how people were treated. Let's say you hurt your knee. The first thing, you'd go see a doctor. He would put you on physical therapy. He would get you a cortisone shot, and about the 6th week, you might get an MRI. Well, we talked with the personnel department and said if Kobe Bryant hurt his knee tonight, they need him tomorrow.
Right.
They'd get an MRI. So a $600 MRI is a lot cheaper than a month and a half of somebody of paying behind that person.
Right.
So in working with the personnel department, we were able to get immediate MRI. The key to lowering work comp costs from a very simplistic perspective is getting the person back to work quicker. So if an average injury, if a person is off 30 days, if we got that person back in 27 days, that's a 10% reduction in your costs. And so in working with the personnel department, they've come up with a real innovative plan where they're working with different doctors, where and David can explain it better than myself, but to where when we call up, we can get an immediate appointment. It can immediate approval. That's where you're going to save on your work comp costs.
You guys ever go to urgent care? Do you have to go to do you ever utilize that urgent care?
For us, it's called Pacific Works?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like an urgent care, but that's what we've done, is we've sent our members to,
Instead of going to an ER.
right, that's exactly what we've done, and the personnel department's been fantastic working with us, and obviously, I mean, they're the experts in the area, but there's been some recent innovations that I feel are going to, within the next year, are going to show some real reductions in the work comp arena. And I was still David's thunder.
Yeah, I would just simply say we work very closely with Chief Ottman. My only observation is that his unit is understaffed. They're doing all the right things. But again, we see the understaffing on certainly their level. David Notmeyer is here also. He's the chief of the Workers' Comp Division.
For police and fire, or just fire? You
All
have both?
claims.
Yeah.
Both claims?
I
You're busy
personally
tonight.
had a chance to meet with the risk manager from LAPD, but after hearing this meeting, of course, I think it's a good idea that we sit down and talk. I know she's worked and gotten some of the data that she talked about from our staff. We have met with the commissioner that you referred to, and
He's very focused on that.
he's very committed to doing something, and we're going to take it beyond that one meeting. We're going to keep meeting with the police department, whoever is willing to meet with us.
Have you met with him yet, this commissioner, the new commissioner?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so you know where he's going with that? Okay.
And I would just simply say, after hearing the conversation, I agree with most of what's been said. This is a long-term issue. It's very hard to come up with a quick fix that's going to
It's
actually.
just been going on for so
Yeah.
long, and it's like the hole's getting deeper and
Yeah.
wider and deeper and wider. It's like quicksand, and then it's gone.
The good news is, you've heard from the police department and Chief Ottman, and David can go into some detail on what we're doing at Work Comp, but we frankly are working on the same
Okay.
goal, which is to
So we're all on the
reduce
same
costs.
page, because the huge issue is with police and fire. No other department, they have a claim once in a while, but no department has the claims as much as, but they're in hazardous risk positions. I mean, it's like, if you work in sanitation, you're in a truck, and you're pushing that button, it's all automated. It used to be a lot of back injury with sanitation when they had the folks that were putting the cans into the truck. Now it's automated, so unless you have a crash, you're not going to have those injuries. With the police and fire, you're obviously engaged in activities all the time, which exposes the body and the city to great liability. And the more we can reduce that, then obviously the better off we are, because those dollars, there's only so much in the pot. It's not like we have special dollars that come down from heaven just to take care of liability. It comes out of that one pot, and that one pot is getting thinner and thinner. It's like our water supply. It gets thinner and thinner and less, and we don't have the rain and the snowpack. Your comments, sir, since you're the man in charge of both? Double headache?
Well, as David indicated, the key is us all working together. We are going to be replacing our current workers' comp claim system. The go-live for that is projected probably April 2014.
This is the automated system?
Well, the actual system that we use to receive the claims and then administer the claims. And the
You're
advantage,
still going to have the outside vendors?
we will continue to have third-party administrators.
Vendors, yeah.
But on a note on the third-party administrators, that what it comes down to is staffing, just as David said, within the personnel and the fire and police departments. It comes down to staffing at our third-party administrators, and it's the number of claims that an analyst handles that basically dictates the outcome of a claim.
But don't we have a contract with them, a certain number of claims per administrator?
Correct, and it's currently at almost 175 caseload per analyst. Under the new contracts that we will be executing in January, that caseload will be reduced to 150. And that's substantial in getting better outcomes for the claims.
So do our costs go up for that, or the costs go down, or they stay the same?
Well, based off of the competitive bid process, we did an RFP, we were able to reduce the caseloads to the current budget that the city has.
So have they announced who's taking that over?
Yes, we've awarded to TriStar,
They already have it.
correct.
So they came down with their price
Yes,
to be more competitive.
correct. And
Were
then
we happy with TriStar? Because I remember when I was personnel chair, we met with the folks in charge at Tri, and they said, if you have any problems, contact us. And in personnel, we were having a meeting, I think quarterly or semi-annually meetings to make sure everything's on. Are we satisfied with their service?
Oh, we actually, Dave can go into more detail, but we have 3 TPAs this time. We had TriStar for the sworn claims. We added Ames on for 1,000 civilian claims in lieu of staff that the council and mayor had reduced. We contracted out 1,000 civilian claims. This go around, we're adding a 3rd TPA, which frankly is in the best interest of the city to have some competition between the TPAs. But TriStar will retain police. Ames,
will take over fire sworn, and ACME will be taking over the fire and police civilian, as well as that 1,000 civilian claims that David mentioned. So we'll have a total.
You get involved in that at all? The
I
claim?
was not part of that process, no.
Because I remember when TriStar took over, and I forgot the one before that, and they kind of just threw it away and said, we didn't get renewed.
Presidium.
Go pound sand. They just walked away and basically left things just hanging, which was really a disaster. So at least TriStar's not getting blown out this time.
Correct.
Because if they were to be, they'd say, hey, thank you, we're up next month, we're gone.
It was not a pleasurable transition.
You remember that transition? That was a disaster.
I just came to the division when the transition
Oh, my
occurred.
God. Yeah, that was a mess. They just walked away, said, thank you very much, goodbye. Okay, so what we need is for the police and fire department on this issue, until you get a risk manager, and I guess you're in charge of this to some aspect, from your position?
My boss is, sir,
Who's your boss?
Chief Darren Palacios.
Where's he?
He was unable to make it today.
All right, will you tell him that we appreciate his absence, but the bucket is still in his hand?
Yes.
So if you can get together, my goal is to reduce the cost. Give the service, provide for the public, but reduce the cost. And if we can reduce the cost, then everybody will be happy because we've accomplished what we're trying to accomplish. And not without intervention from a court, without intervention from some other source, but internally to say on the police department side, on the fire department side, look at what we've done. We've implemented this, and you know what? Here's the numbers. They've gone down significantly. We've accomplished what our goal was to accomplish. We're never going to eliminate it, we know, but to have an improvement in the reduction. And if the ombudsman or whatever risk management you folks put into play, or whatever you put into play, it's like, hey, we're reducing it. And if people have an argument, a disagreement, then someone intercedes before they go and file a claim. And there's always attorneys out there who take those cases and file the claim, and then the city throws their hands up and says, okay, here we go. $1 million here, $1 million there. Mr. T. Frank, what do you have to say for yourself?
Nothing unless you have questions, sir.
I have a question. What do you think about it? See, you open the door. Commission Executive Director.
Richard T. Frank, Executive Director of the Police Commission. As you indicated, Commissioner Bernardino has had a significant interest in the workers' compensation issue. Prior to him coming on the commission as a body has had an interest in the risk management of the LAPD and has asked for a number of reports. The last report that came to us was about a month and a half ago, prepared by Ms. Correa. We have a report coming to us, I believe it's December 11th is scheduled for. It'd be a quarterly update of some specific strategies and individual goals that the department has identified in the respective areas that the risk manager has identified. Commission is looking forward to that. We did have a meeting. We have a subcommittee of the commission made up of Commissioners Saltzman and Bernardino. We met with Dave Luther and his staff to discuss workers' compensation from the global perspective, the process when a claim is filed, how that claim is then processed, getting services to officers, inquiring about what are the days lost of productivity and what are those equal and full-time equivalents for sworn and for civilians. A big focus of the commissions is reduction of traffic collisions. And
Have they gone up? Traffic collisions gone up?
I think if you look at the numbers that I've looked at, I would say they have been consistent over the past.
There was a concern about Code 3 that they were going to start crashing those.
No, those numbers have not changed. And some of the research that I did myself in getting numbers from traffic control section, and this goes back now maybe about 6 months ago, broke it down to 3 categories. The categories of black and white traffic collisions, motorcycle traffic collisions, and the rest of the fleet traffic collisions, because there's different types of driving. The motorcycles had the least amount of preventative accidents. They were in I think the 5 to 6% area. Plain cars were about 25%. Black and whites were in the high 60% in the preventative area. And the focus of that being is if you prevent a traffic collision, you prevent probably 2 workers' comp claims. with the two officers in the car. So that, again, will indirectly lower your workers' comp costs. Also, a big focus of the commission has been officers wearing seatbelts. A number of accidents we have seen and a number of cases that have recently been settled where the city has paid out liability claims as a part of that analysis is officers not wearing seatbelts. It's been a focus of the department. I know a focus of the Protective League in last month's Blue Line. Paul Weber wrote a very good article summarizing the facts that occurred back in 1988 at the Fifth and Wall traffic collision where 3 officers were killed and 1 survived. The surviving rookie officer on his first night had his seatbelt on. The other 3 officers did not. Chief Pasinger has taken on an aggressive safe driving campaign, pushing things out to all of his commands, accountability pieces, the area of workers' compensation workers' compensation claims, and traffic collisions are now being ComStatted by each command when they come to ComStat. So it has elevated, as Ms. Correa indicated, within the department and percolating up and down in the organization, and certainly in operations where the bulk of those claims are coming from. Chief Pasinger has taken a very aggressive attitude. So the commission is interested. They are very eager to look forward to seeing results of the efforts that are being put forward. And I think, as again Ms. Correa appropriately said, if we're talking about litigation, we've lost the battle. The issue is prevent litigation.
Exactly.
And so we need to, again, focus on, if we prevent traffic collisions, we prevent litigation. If we create policies internally within the organization to resolve disputes before they get litigated, we've saved money and we've prevented further issues. A big issue for the commission, and you talked about it, is supervisor and manager accountability. What are supervisors and managers doing to prevent actions, and when they see inappropriate actions taking place, to stop it? What are sergeants, lieutenants doing when they see officers without seatbelts? When they see them in the field, going up on a call, meeting with them to exchange paperwork, they see an officer not wearing a seatbelt. What are they doing then? That kind of proactive supervision and management is the piece that the commission is pushing back to the department to ensure occurs.
Good, good. Because I remember the day that you got out of your police car and you weren't wearing your hat, you get written up.
I also remember that, but it was a helmet instead of a hat.
Helmet.
Yes, back in the old days, before you became.
It must have been really old days.
It was.
So we're going to bring this back in 90 days to get an update where the police department is, where the fire department is, and Richard, you're always welcome to get the input, because the goal is to reduce, obviously take care of the employees, reduce the liability, and whatever implementation you folks have in the police department, if you can share it with the fire department, because I think that would assist them. Instead of reinventing, when they come up with some great ideas, hey, this is a wonderful idea, implement. Because the bottom line is we need to reduce the cost and still take care of our people and have money to take care of every other department. When I was at the Police Protective League, the whole thing was cops. You know, we got to get money for cops, got to get equipment for cops, and then you become a city council member, you got the cops, the firefighters, the sanitation, librarians, you got everybody, and it just expanded. So while the dollars have shrunk, and they have shrunk, and services have been reduced, the public is still very demanding. And when we report these dollars that are going out in these types of situations, and as Mr. Tiefang said, supervisor's accountability, responsibility, which is obviously in your position and in the risk management from the fire commission, from the fire department, it's like, hey, you know, command staff, you got a responsibility to maintain a proper environment so we don't have these situations. Because like I said earlier, as soon as something happens, it's litigation, and litigation means cost. Whether we're defending it from the city side or we're making a payout and trying to settle the claim, we need to reduce all those things. So we'll have, and it's not going to be an easy task, I admit that, but we need to move forward so we don't end up coming up with another federal order that says this is what you got to do. You know, you're like in a little chamber following, and if you deviate one, then you get slapped in your hand. You get slapped in your hand because when we were under the consent decree, the dollars, the hassle for the department, the reports, going to court, you remember that? That was really a cumbersome task. And what it accomplished, I don't know. But the fact is, people still need police service, they need fire service, but we need to reduce the cost of not providing the service, but the cost when we do something that doesn't measure up in the world of litigation. So let's bring this back. Anything else, Mr. Adrian? Paul? So let's bring this back in 90 days. And hopefully we'll see some progress and look at those numbers again. All right?
For your time.
Thank you all very much. Thank you. Okay, that's number 4. Mr. Clerk, what do you think?
That's it.
Thank you very much, sir. That concludes. Oh, Richard Tiefang, I got a thing for you.
Yes, sir.